Josh Peake, the Secretary of the South Australian branch of the SDA. Thanks for joining us on Flow today.
Cheers. Thanks for having us on, Ricky.
Now, first of all, what is the SDA? Who do you represent in South Australia?
So the SDA is the state's largest union, and we look after workers in the retail sector, so workers in supermarkets, department stores, fast food, as well as warehousing and distribution.
Yeah, and any indication just how many members that actually is?
Yeah, so across the state we have about 25,000 members of the union working in those industries.
So we've noticed an advertisement running on Flow FM at the moment, and just thought this was of interest regarding Eudunda Farmers, but it's really about the supermarket operations of that brand and some concerns about underpayment of wages. What is this about?
Yeah, so Eudunda Farmers Limited is a Adelaide-based public company with shareholders that owns and operates about 20 Foodlands and IGA stores right across regional South Australia, including in places like Eudunda, in places like Kapunda, Meningie. They used to operate the Millicent supermarket, Bordertown, right out to Jamestown and Gladstone, Port Augusta, etc. So they're the operator of many of the local stores in many of the local regional communities right across South Australia. And about this time last year, the SDA began an investigation into claims that many workers have been underpaid at those workplaces for a very long period of time, and that investigation lent us to engage with the company and ask them to conduct an audit of the way they've been operating the stores. And unfortunately, that hasn't been forthcoming, and that's put us in the position where we've recently lodged at the federal court a significant case on behalf of 64 workers alleging quite a number of breaches and underpayments over the last 6 years.
So how are those supermarkets branded? Like, they're not branded as Eudunda Farmers out in the regions. Are they Foodlands or what are they?
Yeah, most are Foodland stores. They do own a couple of IGAs as well, but we're talking the Barmera Foodland, the Mannum Foodland, the Waikerie Foodland. These are all Eudunda Farmers stores. The Kapunda Foodland, and they're owned and operated by this public company. And this is not a small business. Many people might think that these stores are owned and operated locally. They're not. They're owned and operated by an Adelaide-based company that had revenue last year of about $180 million. They've got well over $70 million in assets. This is a pretty big business we're talking about. And that's what makes it so shocking, Ricky, is that we're not just talking about the underpayment of wages for retail workers that really need to be getting paid correctly. Generally low-paid workers, and some of these underpayments exceed $10,000 a year for some workers, so extraordinarily high amount of money for workers that aren't earning very much. But it's also about how that is ripping money out of these regional towns. These workers should have been getting paid correctly, because they would then be spending that money back into the regional communities, helping them pay their bills to live a decent life, help support the regional towns. And we're alleging at the federal court that not only were these workers underpaid, but the obvious consequence of that for regional South Australian communities, from Bordertown through to Gladstone, is that's money that wasn't going back into these regional communities. And so it truly is shocking, and we are saying at the moment that it's incredibly brave of the 64 workers that have so far come forward and have made a statement of claim and are supporting this action. But we do really want any worker who has worked for this company in the last 6 years to come forward to speak to us, to see if they've been underpaid as well, because I'm determined, Ricky, to make sure that any worker, any South Australian regional worker working for this company that was not paid correctly over the last 6 years receives every cent that they are owed. Because what has happened isn't a mistake. It's not that the company accidentally didn't operate properly. It is in our view, and what we will be alleging at the federal court, a deliberate attempt to underpay, to rip off workers in these regional stores. Store managers who should be getting paid at the store manager rate of the retailer board, being paid the same rate as a checkout operator or a night fill worker. That's $6 an hour every single hour of work being paid $6 an hour less than they should have.
Yep, that probably colours why they were getting, in total, $10,000 a year less if they were getting paid the same rate as the people they're supervising.
It's extraordinary. It truly is extraordinary. Workers that have been casual for over 30 years, working systematic rosters, and have been told no, they can't have permanent work. Workers speaking up and being told you don't want to create trouble for yourself. Intimidation, standover tactics, an incredibly poor culture across these stores, and we are absolutely determined to fix it.
So the 64 workers you mentioned from the categories you've described there, some of them are experienced people who've been at the store for some time, but are there some younger workers as well potentially captured in this?
It's a huge mix. We've got workers who are young, casual night fillers that have joined the case, through to store managers and some people that have worked for the business for decades. And it just shows, like, it is for many people, particularly when these stores are some of the major employers in some of these towns, incredibly scary to speak up and say something. And it's something that I think really does show how remarkable and how brave these workers are that have come forward to get this fixed.
Now, some workers that might not know whether they worked for Eudunda Farmers or not, I gather you're happy to receive any concerns expressed by people if they're uncertain who was their actual employer during that period.
Absolutely, and indeed, we do know that wage theft is rife. So, look, if people come forward to us and think that they may have a claim somewhere else, we're obviously always happy to hear it and see if we can assist. But I think for most people, what our understanding is, if you whilst a customer who walks past, say, the Kapunda Foodland might not realise it's owned and operated by Eudunda Farmers Limited, this public company that's based in Adelaide, we do think that most of the workers, people who worked for that business, did know who their employer was and do know they worked for Eudunda Farmers or one of their controlled subsidiaries. So it is important that they do come forward to us.
Yeah, and that time period, is it up to the current day, or was there a certain period where the time frame of that concerning behaviour was occurring?
Yeah, so look, it's 6 years dated from when we lodged, which was last Friday, the 10th of September. So any time in the 6 years, in the previous six years, the law limits us from going back further than 6 years. We actually don't think that people have been paid correctly at this business for a very long time, but we can only take legal action for the last 6 years of work, and that's who we're asking come forward and contact the union.
And just lastly, if someone isn't a participant in the action, is it still possible they may get a back payment if you're ultimately vindicated in this process?
No. I suppose there's two ways to answer that. Firstly, we want the company, and what we've been saying to the company for some time is just fix it, conduct an audit, work out who's been underpaid and pay everyone. I want to make sure that everyone gets paid. Because at this stage the company hasn't taken the voluntary step to do that, we can only make claims on behalf of people who are part of the case, and so that's why it's critically important that people come forward, complete the survey and participate in the federal court action.
Yeah, and where is that online? How do they make contact with the SDA if they want to be part of that action?
So they can head to our website, which we've set up for this case, which is eudundatheft.com.au, or they can contact the union on 8139 1000.
Well, Josh, thanks for joining us on that one, and it'd be interesting to see how this progresses, whether it goes to tribunal or whether it gets settled. Be interested to get an update from the SDA.
No worries. Thanks, Ricky.